Not only the two companies we're discussing today examples of good and bad performance in their field, but the field itself is a subject of much debate. Today we're taking a deep dive into the performances of two pharmaceutical giants, AstraZeneca and GlaxoSmithKline. We'll be looking at the impact of management and how in business the past doesn't necessarily determine the future. These two pharmaceutical giants are regarded as UK businesses, but truly they're multinational with research, production and sales spread throughout the world. These particular two just happen to be listed in the London Stock Exchange, but their shares are owned by a broad range of international investors. The aim of this video is to look at these companies from an investment point of view, but we do want to acknowledge the broader debate around Big Pharma as a whole from a moralistic standpoint. To very briefly summarise this debate, many dislike Big Pharma due to concerns about high drug prices, lobbying efforts, and the perception that the industry prioritises profits over patients' well-being. This is further compounded by cases of potentially unethical pricing strategies and Big Pharma's perceived role in the overprescription of drugs, including but not limited to those that led to the opioid crisis. The worst of pharmaceutical companies absolutely remind us of the unacceptable face of capitalism. However, in general, the industry is populated by people of integrity, talent, and good intentions. Sufferers of diabetes, heart disease, and respiratory conditions, along with numerous cancers, have good reasons to applaud the efforts of Big Pharma in improving their lives. The high cost of breakthrough drugs is often lambasted in the media, which somewhat fails to acknowledge the cost of bringing a drug to market. Research and development, regulatory approvals, and patent trials take time and a lot of money. If a drug manages to clear all these hurdles, patent protection for the new treatments typically lasts 20 years, and after that prices fall substantially to reflect competition from generic alternatives. All of this is simply make you aware of the debate surrounding the morality of pharmaceutical companies. And while we ourselves are largely supportive and believe that the industry does more good than harm, as previously stated, our aim is not to inform your moral opinion, but rather your investment opinion. So with that said, let's now look at the 10-year performance of these two companies, starting with AstraZeneca. When the current CEO was appointed in 2012, AstraZeneca was one of the 10 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, but was facing a string of patent expiries. As an example, in 2009, when its oncologist treatment for Arimidex lost its US patent exclusivity, its 2010 sales of the product fell by 86%. The new CEO refocused the business on fewer strategic areas, made a number of infill acquisitions, and strengthened the company's external partnerships. Some of his actions were deeply unpopular. The closure of the company's facility in the north of England as part of the programme to lose around 300 jobs from the site and relocate up to 2,500 other roles was met with dismay. The company overhauled its drug investigation approach, applying stringent standards and looking for drugs of significant benefit to significant patient population, with the highest safety standards for a compelling commercial case. With this aim, its drug approval rate significantly improved from an industry lagging 4% or so to a much healthier high teens percentage by the middle end of the 2010s. Finally, all this was supplemented by judicious use of licensing, partnership and acquisition deals. Look, not every tactic was successful, and the company given for a lot of flack for the price they paid for biotechnic giant Alexion. But over the piece, the company successfully developed and marketed a range of world-class products for advanced treatments for cancer, heart disease, and respiratory illnesses. As a consequence of developing these drugs, the company's done very well for its shareholders. Growth in earnings, dividend, and share price has been excellent, beating the performance of the UK's FTSE 100 index fivefold over that period. Its market capitalisation is currently 180 billion. Over the period, AstraZeneca's share price has risen from around £45 to the current level of £120. Overall, we take this as pretty clear evidence of a competent management adding value to the business, contrasting with today's second example. GlaxoSmithKline. Here's for the story of terrible management, which is arguably more fun, though admittedly not if you happen to own the shares. The current market capitalisation of GlaxoSmithKline is 60 billion, a third of AstraZeneca's. Its share price in 2015 was around £15, a disappointing 20% fall from its 1999 high. Today the share price hovers around £14.50. Over the past 10 years, the various management teams at GSK have managed to generate zero return for its shareholders. May I say very tolerant shareholders. And this covers a period where global stock markets have performed very strongly. Now, supporters may argue that GSK has paid an attractive dividend to its shareholders over the years. However, critics like us, would argue that for years the company over-distributed in a climate of earnings stagnation in a vain attempt to support its flagging share price. The company still aimed to outperform the UK stock market by about 25%, but finally in 2022 had to admit to its shortcomings and cut its dividend. And the funny part is that 2 years later, the CEO then declared the company to have a progressive dividend policy, in what I can only call a laughably false statement. So let's give a quick summary of some of their recent failings. The company failed to earn a significant return of the billions invested in research and development. They failed to adequately replace its historically successful suite of products as they ran out of patent protection. They failed to convince the market that its current pipeline of drugs offers promise. They completed a number of uninspiring company acquisitions and sold a number of its better businesses, including its oncology franchise, to Novartis. More recently, it's also sold its excellent portfolio of over-the-counter products as a now rebranded Haleon Group. It's also arguable that GSK has been operating with financial gearing that's a bit too high for its comfort level. More recently, as a self-proclaimed leader in the world of vaccines, took on an embarrassment as AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and upstart Moderna stole the headlines in pursuit of an effective COVID-19 vaccine in the full glare of global tensions. But trumping all of this in terms of wonderful incompetency came their reaction to a US lawsuit. GSK were sued over the alleged historical harm done by its hugely successful and long-established stomach acid treatment, Zantac. Initially, GSK robustly defended this iconic drug, but within months it caved to media pressure, agreeing to set aside $2.2 billion to cover any potential liability and reduce uncertainty for investors. Well, that did not work, and this issue remains a cloud over GSK itself and subsequently its share price. It should be apparent now why we have such a high regard for the AstraZeneca management team and the job they've done for their shareholders. Meanwhile, the management at GSK have failed miserably and should really be taking a long hard look in the mirror. So what can we as investors learn from this case study? Well, the importance of competent upper management. GSK entered this 10-year period as a powerhouse, but is horribly stagnated and underperformed the market. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca have largely gone from strength to strength in this period, and that's reflected in its share price. Both companies employ cohorts of wonderfully intelligent, hard-working, committed, imaginative scientists. The difference is one has a good management team and one doesn't. So does this mean we should all be running out to buy AstraZeneca and selling all of our GlaxoSmithKline? Maybe not quite. In reality, the excellent prospects for AstraZeneca's future may have already been baked into its current share prices. Meanwhile, it's entirely possible Glaxo's performance picks up in subsequent years, presumably with a change in management, but even just a change in research fortunes. A broken clock is right twice a day, after all. Companies like Glaxo kind of remind me of an old Warren Buffett quote. I try to invest in businesses that are so wonderful that an idiot could run them, because sooner or later, one will. We will leave aside the possibility of Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway one day being run by an idiot, but that's a whole other story. Maybe Glaxo is indeed a wonderful business and shareholders just have to sit out the current phase. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca powers on. Despite the moral objections of many to perceived profiteering in Big Pharma, Glaxo are proof that the drugs don't always work. So that's it for our little case study. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see more videos that are expanding on themes like this, going into other reasons why you may or may not invest in companies, exposing some of the frauds and the liars in the financial industry, and generally explaining all the little things that many people don't want you to know, please do follow along with us at Profit42, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.